Welcome to the Cross Digital Podcast, where journalism meets marketing, and you learn how to hug the storms in your life. And now, here's your host, Dennis Washington.
Hi, I'm Dennis Washington from Cross Digital and crossdig.com. Hope you're having a great day today. Got an awesome interview for today's podcast. It's with Richard Simmons, and he's a book author that I recently got a chance to meet at the Trussville Leadership Conference back in March earlier this year. But we were talking today, and his latest book is called A Life of Excellence, Wisdom for Effective Living. And it's fantastic stuff in here. He addressed some of that at the conference. We got into a little bit of detail on this, but whether you're an entrepreneur or not, whether you're a businessman that's been working in a business for 20 or 30 years. In fact, Richard was one of those. He started working at this company, this business, at the age of 23 and spent 25 years there, worked his way all the way up to CEO. For the last 10 years of those 25, he was the CEO of the company. And then as he, got there, he was realized, near the end of that, it's like, you know what, I've got a calling. He had started spending some time doing mission work in a sense of helping men through, Bible studies and inspiration, counseling, professional, personal counseling, that kind of thing. So he ended up leaving there and starting the Center for Executive Leadership. It's a nonprofit faith-based ministry located in Birmingham, Alabama. Opened the center there in 2000. Basically, the goal is to assist men in the development of their faith through formal Bible studies, teaching, and counseling. They also do book publishing, including his books. He's got about 5 of them out now. And again, the most recent's this one. A lot of great stuff there. And basically, he realized, when he got to about that 38, 40 age, that he wanted to do something different and give back. And we get into some of that in this upcoming interview, and what led him to completely change course after nearly a quarter of a century of working all his way up to a very top position in a big company, and where he's went from there, and the principles behind this book. There's really some things I think that can apply to you and everyone in your life, in all of our lives, our business life, our personal life. I think it's really, really good. So let's get into the interview. Enough for me talking about it. Here's my interview with Richard Simmons. And Richard Simmons joins me now on the phone. Richard, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dennis. Good morning.
So tell folks a little bit that have never had the chance to meet you, basically how you got to where you are today, your career path, and what led you to what you're doing now.
Well, I was very fortunate. At the age of 23, I had been to graduate school and studied risk management. And I started a career in the risk management and insurance industry. And I worked with one firm for almost 28 years. I didn't jump around. I had one employer. And I kind of moved up the ranks, and after about 15 or 16 years, became the CEO of the company.
Wow.
And I had a great career, and everything went well for me. And I really kind of had a dual career. I did a lot of teaching and speaking, primarily faith-based Christian teaching. I did a lot of Bible studies with men and a lot of speaking, and I began to do some writing. And then I had this really wonderful job, which I traveled a good bit. It was just a real blessing for me. But then, at the age of 41, the one thing I didn't have up until that time, I'd never been married. I didn't have a family.
Wow.
And so, at the age of 41, I met the woman of my dreams, and we got married. And because of my age, she felt like we needed to move forward with the family fairly quickly. So, 18 months into our marriage, we had our first child, and then we had two others within the 33-month period. We had 2 more. We had 3 children total.
Wow.
Anyway, and so my life really began to change as I took on these new responsibilities. And I remember telling my wife that I had this vision of starting really an organization, a nonprofit organization, which ultimately would be a ministry to men. And she was all green lights. She was very supportive, and And my company was really good because I told them that I really wanted to start this new organization, and they let me. For a 3-year period, I stayed on with them as a consultant, working part-time, and then the other part, I did my ministry, teaching and speaking work.
Wow.
To men, and then I had a board of directors for my nonprofit, and they finally the work was really flourishing and being quite fruitful, and they said, you need to quit all consulting and do this full time. And that was really the beginning of this about 10 years ago, and since then we have incrementally grown. I've got 10 people now that work with we have a ministry and a publishing company, and we just kind of continue to incrementally grow and expand, and it's been just a great ride.
It sounds fantastic. Part of that story sounds so similar to me. We were talking before we started the interview. I spent 18 years working at the same business that I started at before I graduated college. I started working at the Fox TV station in Birmingham, and worked there until last summer when I left to start my own business. And that longevity, it's really, I guess, kind of easy to stay comfortable in that position of something that you've been doing for so many years. Even when, like I did, you did the same, worked your way up the ranks, it was still a very comfortable feeling to be there. How did it feel when you realized that, at that moment that, okay, I want to do something different? Was there some sort of struggle for you about making this decision of walking away from something that you had been with for almost a quarter century at that point?
That's a really good question. It was a struggle from the standpoint, one, I wondered, financially, would we be okay?
Right.
Number two, so often men particularly, and I'm sure women as well out in the workplace, but men particularly, because that's who I work with primarily, we so easily get our identity from our work, from our accomplishments, from how well we do out in the workplace, and being in the position that I was in, it was hard for me to realize I'm just going to walk away from this.
Yeah.
And I think that was a struggle, but I think what overcame that, there was more of a powerful sense of calling that I had to leave that work and go start something else.
It really is. That was kind of. It's not one of those decisions that you make quickly and rashly and at the at the drop of a hat. I mean, it's something that it sounds like it took years really for you to completely progress from where you were until starting the business and then eventually going full time with the business. I mean, it wasn't an overnight thing, right?
It was not, and I was real blessed. I kind of was able to do it in kind of a transition period of time, and it was not this radical. I quit my job, didn't have an income, and just kind of was out
Right.
there by faith. Yeah, I was fortunate that my former company let me transition. They wanted me to stay on in a consulting role, and I really enjoyed that, and they paid me to do that, and it gave me that 3-year period to really get this nonprofit going. And so I was real fortunate to have those circumstances.
That is fantastic. I was a couple of weeks ago. You were the keynote speaker at a conference that I was also one of the speakers at, the leadership conference in Trussville, and you spoke about your new book, A Life of Excellence: Wisdom for Effective Living, and I was been reading that since the conference. Fantastic stuff, and you talked in there and even in the preface about the life being governed by certain laws and principles that. They're not good and bad, moral or immoral. They're just simply true. Can you kind of explain that and your thought behind that process?
Sure. Yeah, most people don't realize that the world has a certain pattern or fabric to it. In other words, life is governed by certain principles and laws. And as you just mentioned, these laws are not good or bad. They're not moral or immoral. They're just truth. They're part of reality. And I truly believe that wisdom is learning how to discern these laws, recognize that they're out there and that they exist, and then seek to live your life in harmony with them. Because what so many people don't realize is that principles and laws really make life very predictable. They create the potential for certain outcomes in your life if you'll live in harmony with them. And as I outline in the book, when we live in harmony with these principles that govern life, then that's when we, in our personal lives and professional lives, will flourish.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and that really makes sense when you start to especially as you read the book. You do a good job outlining. There was a couple of stories in there that really made an impression on me, and one of them that you outline about midway through the book is about the compound effect that Darren Hard wrote about in his book, and the illustration, the magic penny. If you were given the choice of receiving $3 million in cash right now or a single penny that would double in value every day for 31 days, which would you choose? It sounds, if someone's smart enough, they realize, okay, this might be a trick question. And when you really do the math, you realize it almost is. The $3 million pales in comparison to the fact that after 31 days, you would have almost $11 million. And you use that expression there, from what I understand here, basically to the idea that investing small amounts of time over, consistently over a long periods of time can really create some success in your life. Is that kind of what you were going after there?
Yeah, in fact, that's absolutely. That really had a lot to do with the second principle in the book. It's called the vector principle. And just to kind of give you a little background on it in my own life, back in my early 20s, or really mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, I had these great, grand dreams for my life. I was going to do all these wonderful things. And at the first of every year, I would, and I still have these written down, I had these grand, wonderful New Year's resolutions. And I was going to read this many books. I was going to do this. In every area of my life. And almost every year, when I got to around April the 1st, I would realize I had failed miserably in all of these. And it was just quite discouraging until I learned this principle, and that is the importance of you don't need to make these huge changes. Just every year seek to make small changes that will become habits in your life, and then they make a huge difference with the passage of time. And that's where it's kind of like there's this idea of a ripple effect, or the power of compounding, which Einstein said is the most powerful force in the world. Mm-hmm. If you can make a small change in a strategic area of your life, and then let time go by, where it becomes a habit, the consequences are huge as you look at 5, 10, 15 years go by.
Yeah, kind of that snowball effect where you start with a little snowball, and as it rolls downhill, it gathers snow and keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's funny you mentioned that vector, and the list, every year having these grand ideas, and they really never happen. I remember when I was in college and had great dreams about where I was going to go with my TV career, and in particular what cities I was going to end up in. And then I got to Birmingham and met my wife, or who would become my wife, and those dreams quickly disappeared. And it's funny, it's especially, when you read your Bible and all, you realize that God is in so much control over that. And as we get older, the thing I seem to have learned is there is so much that we don't have control over, and if we stop worrying about the things we don't have control over, we can focus more of our time on the things we do have control over. And it kind of sounds like that's kind of something that you've come to understand in the last 10, 15 years as well.
Right. Well, that's well said. And I would just say that clearly it's very easy to think, well, I'm going to let God do all this because I have trust and faith in Him. And this is really kind of what I've written 4 or 5 books, and I tell people this book A Life of Excellence is not really a book on spiritual transformation. It's a wisdom book, because we do have certain responsibilities, and that as far as to see our lives grow and progress. But some people don't realize, well, what should I be doing? And that's why I find that there's this huge gap, Dennis, between with people's hopes and dreams and aspirations and what they actually end up doing with their lives, and they don't really know how to get on a path to get them there. And so that was really the purpose of this book.
That makes so much sense, because I think everybody inherently, no matter what stage they are in their life, they're dreaming about doing something different. And I guess maybe it's just our nature as human beings. We want something we don't currently have, and that can sometimes be unhealthy. But we always have something in the back of our minds that we would like to either own or be able to do. But like you point out there, it sounds like the making that bridge from having the dream to making it a reality, some people just don't feel like they have the tools or the inspiration or the desire to build the bridge to go from dream to reality, so they end up just giving up on trying to build the bridge. And how so?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, and that's why you begin to see in people's lives this frustration that starts in their 30s and really continues on with the rest of their lives. Is, when I was 21 or 22, I had these great dreams and hopes for the future, and they never came to pass, and they have no idea why not, and how do I turn this around? And it's a real frustration, Dennis, that you see in so many adult lives.
Because you're right. I mean, I see that with other people I meet too. I guess the big question is then, what do you tell people to either inspire them or to help them find the tools they need to build the bridge? Is there a magic solution that really turns the dream into actually, becoming fulfilled at some point? How do you build the bridge?
Yeah, that's probably one of the real problems. And as you know, it's in the book, and I mentioned it in a speech the other day, is that the first principle is called the principle of the path, and it's not real difficult to understand. In fact, I tell people it's really simple, but it's also quite profound. And as you were sharing that or asking that question, I was thinking, for a lot of people today, they end up trying to figure out, is there a shortcut that can get me there?
So true. Yes.
Is there some, that's why you go into a Books A Million or Barnes & Noble and go into the self-help section, and there are all these books, like 5 simple steps to double your sales.
Right. A dummy's guide to,
7 easy principles to have the perfect marriage. I was listening to CNBC the other day on my radio, and they said, and this was an advertisement, easy stock trading techniques to make you millions. And that's what people end up doing, is looking, how can I find a way to do this? What kind of formula will get me there?
Right.
When in reality, you have to figure out the path that will take you to your goals, your dreams, your objectives, and then get on that path and stay on it, again, realizing with the passage of time, you'll see that come to pass, because often large objectives that you're trying to achieve, the best way to accomplish them are in small steps, day in, day out. There's nothing exciting about it. It's kind of like you have to plod down a certain path and stay on that path. And sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's difficult, and so people say, I'm not going to do this. And this is what I emphasize in this book, is that when we take on a hard task, as time goes by, it becomes easier, not because the task has changed, but because our ability to do it has increased.
It's so true. Well, and then I think too, the other side to that as well is that process of going from dream to reality, building that bridge, starting out small, and it becomes easier over time. I think probably, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, but people, as they go forward, start to realize that they can't do some things by themselves, and they start to get the help of their friends and their family and people they come across, and they start to realize that those friends and family members and people will become almost like cheerleaders and supporters and be willing to help them through that process because they see the excitement starting to build of the bridge as it's being built. I mean, is that kind of, do you see that group?
Absolutely, and I think that's a great point, that there really is power in community, and that we really can't function well in isolation, that we do need to bring in people into our lives, whether to encourage us, to consult with, to seek wisdom. I think that is a powerful force behind it, and people say, you can do this.
Yeah.
So that's a crucial part, I think, of living this life.
No, so true. I know we're running short on time. I did want to give you a chance to tell folks that are listening or watching on our podcast today, any projects coming your way in the next 6 to 12 months that you'd like to tell folks about?
Well, I really do a lot of public speaking, and one of the things that I really have enjoyed, and we're starting to get covered up, which is good. Is I think this message on a life of excellence we're finding is so crucial. I'm really working to get it ideally into the lives of younger people, because then you've got a 40-year period to apply these. I tell people all the time, I wish that I had known these principles when I was 21, but I'm real grateful that I've learned them by the age of 55.
So true.
And so I'm in the process right now of really over the next 6 to 12 months is really to get this message out, whether it's to high school students, college students, men and women who are out in the workplace, men or women who are at home, wherever you are. I believe that every single person really, and I go through this, Dennis, I think pretty extensively, I think everyone really desires a life of excellence where they are the very best they can be in every area of their lives. And to help people to see that become a reality is real important to me. I'm sure there are other books that I'll be working on, because there's so many issues out there that I desire to kind of give enlightenment to when I can, and so that's kind of the plan between now and the end of the year.
Fantastic, Richard. Thank you so much for your time today, and best wishes on you and your future endeavors.
Great. Thanks so much, Dennis.
And again, that was Richard Simmons. The book is called A Life of Excellence, Wisdom for Effective Living. I'll put a link to that in the show notes on our blog at crossdig.com. Really, really great interview. I just met the guy just a few weeks ago, but I've been reading the book here. Really, really some good stuff in there. We didn't even get to a lot of it in there. But men or women, this book really has a lot of great things about building that bridge, taking our dreams, turning them into reality, and the challenges of that. I really think there is, and I've seen this in my own personal life. I see it in a lot of people I meet. They're really good people, and they've got really good intentions, but it's just making that bridge from the dreams to reality, and the process of starting. That whole concept about our New Year's Day resolutions and what we're going to do for the new year, and how things really don't pan out the way we think they will. I think we've all experienced that in our lives. I know I've certainly seen that in mine. So again, my appreciation to Richard for the great interview. We'll put the links up to the book, and if you want to learn more about him or the book, it'll be up on our show notes there at crossdig.com. And again, thanks to Richard for the time on that. That's it for this edition of the crossdig.com podcast. I'm Dennis Washington. Hope you're having a great day today. See you next time.